I wanted to make a quick video just showing how I make the aeration fittings for my bucket wormeries and fermenting systems. So it's based on Mark Payne's fermenting buckets, which are part of his Eve growing concept of gardening in containers, largely using reclaimed materials. So what you'll need is either a water bottle or a Coke bottle. I find that fizzy drinks bottles are better because they're a slightly heavier gauge PET plastic, so they're slightly thicker, slightly more durable, and the bottle caps seem a bit more resistant as well. So you could use a junior hacksaw or a hacksaw, fine tooth saw, just to cut the tops off. What you want to do, you've got the threaded part here, there's a little collar which is the bottom of the cap, and then you've got this larger collar around here as well. And you want to I use a pipe cutter, which is one of these tools. This is a ratchet pipe cutter. As you squeeze the handles together, it ratchets down and cuts through. This one will cut up to about 38 or 40 millimeter PVC waste pipe. And it's also good for MDP, sort of, what do you call it, aqua pipe or aqua flow pipe, whatever it's called. It's like MDP. It's a kind of blue water pipe you'll see. In lots of allotment plots they'll use it because it's quite cheap. You can get a 25-metre roll for around about £25, something like that, and it's good for sort of cloches, hoops and things like that. So okay, I'll put it underneath that little collar on the top of the bottle. Sometimes it's easier if you keep the lid on there, get the cap on, and then just ratchet down. With this one I find it's actually easier if you just turn it a little, and then you get a squarer cut when it goes through, and then just ratchet down that, so and it will pop off and disappear, never to be seen again normally. So as I'll finish with the cutters, that's just to cut off the top of the cap. So you can see I've got the little collar part on there as well, and then that unthreads. So the top part, what I'm trying to do is make an aeration fitting, and then all will be revealed as I kind of finish this off. But I've got one of these little brass gauzes. This is a pipe gauze, and that fits on top of the cap. And what you'll need to do next, that will thread on there, but you need a hole in the cap. And for this, I'm just going to use a cordless drill. You could use a pillar drill, probably a hand drill even. It's fairly soft plastic. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see. Yeah, the whole saw's got fairly large teeth. It's bimetal, so it's a bit like a kind of hacksaw blade. It's got a flexible sort of body and then hard teeth, so it will drill through metals, steel, cast iron, things like that. It's quite a large sort of tooth profile to cut or drill through plastic, but it does a reasonable job. It's just you've got to take your time because it will tend to snatch because it's quite fast. It's quite fast cutting rather. So I'll just start this off. It's easier in a pillar drill. Get rid of some of the swarf from here as well. Blow that out. Just take your time when you're drilling, not too much pressure. You see it's starting to just drill through one side. As it does that, it will tend to want to kind of spin it round, so you've got to be, just take your time, a bit careful. Okay, there's a hole through, and what you'll notice inside here is a little sort of raised part, and that's pretty much 20 millimeters. So when you drill through, that locates and centralizes the drill bit, so it guides it through nice and centrally, so you get a nice concentric hole. You get a little bit of swarf which you can just clean up with your fingers. I finished with this drill, so I'll put that to one side. So there's the two parts. There's a cap with a hole in it, top of the bottle cut off, brass gauze fits into the threads. I'll just blow the dust out. Probably quite loud on the camera. So it just sort of, it's almost the thread sort of will tend to hold it in a little bit, so when you thread that on the fitting, it will hold the brass in place. And then this is the nylon strainer bag. This is brewery waste, or rather a brewery filter strainer bag. I collect the hops and grains from brewery, and occasionally they have yeast and whatever they filter in these bags. It's got a little bit of debris on there that will wash off, but yeah, it's just a nylon, so it's it will last quite a long time. It won't biodegrade, and it makes a very fine mesh for the aeration fitting as well. So it still lets a reasonable amount of air through. I've got 4 of these fittings on the fermenting bucket. So the buckets, or the bucket I use, are these 25 litre containers, and I've just cut the top off this one, and I just wanted to drill a hole. To drill the hole for the fitting, I use a step bit, and this is quite a large step bit. This one's probably easier to show you because it's not in a drill. You see here, stepped bit because it's got different diameters on the same drill bit, and if you can see, they've etched those on there as well. This one's goes up in steps of 2mm, so you've got 2, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. The holes I need for these is going to be bigger than that. I think they're about between, well, probably 25, 27mm, so I'll use the larger size. I think I bought this one from Screwfix. It's I think it's about £8.99 or less than £10. They're quite good. They'll drill sheet metals as well. Primarily they are for drilling sheet metals. It drills through nice and cleanly. It doesn't catch and kind of burr and mar the work when you're drilling through. They're also good for plastics as well, but it will make quite a bit of swarf when you're drilling. So it's a good idea to kind of sweep all those bits up, and I just stick it in the recycling because it's the same stuff as the milk bottles are made from. This is being a little bit noisy, so I can't really talk too much, and it's quite awkward doing this whilst I'm filming. Just check the hole size, so I need to go up to the next step. So that fits through perfectly. Just put the drill to one side. So what I do with these fittings, I've got the bottle cap, so I wrap the mesh just over it, hold it with a couple of fingers, push it through from the inside so it pops through, and then my bottle cap that's got the brass mesh, I'll just thread that on. Take a couple of turns just to get it to engage, because obviously you've got the extra material on there as well. Do it nice and tight. So there's a fitting on the outside, so it just got a bottle cap and the brass mesh. On the inside you've got the nylon strainer bag, the inside of the bottle cap. So very quick, very convenient for a waste product, so there's no cost to these at all. So I think they're, well, Waitrose is £1.50 for 6 bottles, and then you get the other part of the bottle, which you can also use as a planter as well. So you don't need very many tools to do it, and it's very simple, very straightforward. The other thing I wanted to show you as well, on these containers, which is I have a lid which is made out of recycled plywood, so it's like 12mm plywood that sits on top. And I have one of these aeration fittings on the top, that way round, and one on the base the other way round. So the idea was, with these, you have an aeration pipe that runs from the bottom to the top, so all the contents of the material have got access to sort of airflow through. And these being flat topped with the plywood, you can stack those up. So what I've been doing, if I can find my materials, I just use a length of this 21.5mm overflow pipe, and that just fits into this pretty very well. I was going to say perfectly. It's not. It's fairly on the loose side of a sort of running fit, really. And I just cut a short section of this, and just twist it slightly so it scores, and then it pops through a couple of squeezes on the handle. So if you imagine this is the top of the container, holes drilled in here, so that fits in, so that's flush with the surface. And I just have a little piece of this tube that pops in there like that. Without the top, that would just drop through, and if this was on a sealed sort of container, you wouldn't want to drop it through because it loose inside of the container. So because I've drilled this 20mm and the outside diameter of this is 21.5, that just pops in, fits through, and so that's on the top of the other container, so that's fixed on like so. So it's fixed on and won't thread through because you've got the cap there. That's on the bottom of the other container, that will sit on, and it will just link the containers together. It's like a kind of male and female connection, so then you've got that air passage through from the container at the bottom right through to the one at the top. I don't know if I've got the pieces, I wasn't planning on doing that in the video. But also what you can do, if you use an elbow, and say you've got your top aeration fitting like so, and you want to keep the rain out, if you use an elbow like so, or this is a T, but if you imagine it's just 90 degrees, you can use that to sort of stop the rain from entering. And if you just use a little off-cut pipe, quite short, you can again fit one of these little brass pipe gauzes just inside the fitting on the T or the elbow, and then use that because it fits in here because it's a 21.5mm fitting, and that will just hold that in like so. And so you can see you've got your little gauze in there, so it's like a little strainer. So if you've got any insects want to get in there, they can smell any kind of leachate from organic matter you've got going on in there, so it keeps it nice and sort of secure. The alternative way of doing it is if you've just got a bit of pipe, and so imagine you've got your elbow that way round, you can just take a little piece of the strainer and then a short length of pipe, just push it through like so, and then you've got your filter in there like that, and then you can just run a little, I've got a standing knife or something, just run round the edge, just trim that off, and then you've got a nice neat container with the aeration fitting on top. As I said, I'm using a T-piece just for the demonstration, just shows a different way of doing it, and you probably could cut that off. Yeah, so you just snip that off, and I just run a standing knife around there just to tidy that up. So that's just a very cheap way of making aeration fittings for a wormery or a fermenting bin, just using reclaimed materials. And I'd like to really thank Mark Thomas Payne, because some of these concepts are his, and his method of growing called Eve Growing is very good. It's one of these sort of open source programs, so he just makes his ideas available and shares his ideas freely, which is quite good, because then it brings up the opportunity to discuss and improve upon his kind of ideas as well, and put those into use yourself. And some of his towel growing systems as well, they're very economical because they're largely using reclaimed materials, and they're very effective. So I like to see someone using their experience and sharing their skills and sharing their knowledge freely as well. So that's all for now, just a couple of quick tips.